What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a new series of shows we're trying out here at Sports Ethos on YouTube. This is called Steal or Bust, where we break down one player and whether or not they are either a steal or a bust. Pretty straightforward, I think. I am Dan Besbris, host of the Fantasy NBA Today podcast at Sports Ethos and anywhere podcasts can be found. Also, please do take a moment to click the like button, subscribe to our YouTube page. If you're enjoying this stuff, we'll have plenty more where that came from. In fact, the more people that enjoy it, the more people that click like, the more that subscribe, the more likely we are to keep doing more of these things. Today, we are talking about the king, LeBron James, who for some reason this year has become an extremely polarizing fantasy player. So, what I thought we could do here to get this thing started is to pull up the current iteration of the Yahoo X rank board. And you can see on your screen now that LeBron has actually seen his X rank drop all the way to number 22. I've highlighted here on the screen. That's the lowest I think he's ever been pre-ranked by Yahoo going into a season. And it makes him a really interesting discussion from a fantasy draft standpoint. Right now, his ADP is still early second round. That's largely because his X rank was early second round until about a week and a half ago. But this most recent move has started to push his draft position down towards at least the middle of the second round. And so that's kind of what we're going to operate on. Not necessarily the ADP data that's out there right now, but what we know is actually happening, which is that he's going not all the way at 22, but closer to that than he was to 12, which is where it was before. It's more like 17, 18 range, or maybe we'll call it split the difference. So we asked the question, is LeBron James a steal or a bust in the middle of the second round? To get to that point, we need to bring up his numbers from last year. So we'll pull those up on the screen right now and talk a little bit more about what that meant for LeBron overall. First, 30.3 points, 8.2 rebounds, 6.2 assists. You guys know enough about me to know that I'm never going to be satisfied with just the counting stats. However, 1.3 steals, 1.1 blocks per game, which was the highest he's had since, you can see it here, 2007 and 8 in Cleveland. And we can't really expect that to stay again. He played a lot of center last year, small ball center, while Anthony Davis was out, and the backup options simply weren't very good. The Lakers brought in two other centers this season in case AD does go down again. Damian Jones, Thomas Bryant would log more center minutes. You might see LeBron there a little bit, but it's not going to be like this last season. So I think you can probably assume that the 1.1 blocks comes back down towards 0.6 to 0.9. Somewhere in between those is a more reasonable number. The 1.3 steals is pretty close to his career mark. It's down a little bit, but that's happened as he's aged. I think you can assume that that number is fairly repeatable. I know the Lakers would hope that his minutes are down more towards 34, 35 instead of 37. So perhaps that 1.3 becomes 1.2, but no real market difference there. Turnovers are always going to be in the mid to high threes because he's handling the basketball. Rebounds are always going to be in the 7 to 8 and change range. Yes, again, maybe they were a little higher because of center, but we've seen it before in LA, 7.7, 7.8. He was at 8.5 his first season with the Lakers. Rebounds are not going to be a problem. Interestingly, in his Mondo season last year, LeBron's assists were actually way down because he didn't have teammates to throw it to. And you could argue some of that problem still exists this year. A healthy Anthony Davis would help that. A healthy Kendrick Nunn would help that. They brought in a few more guys. And obviously, if the Lakers make a trade at any point to bring in a shooter or surround him with more guys that can space the floor, that's a number that would come back up again. But any increase in assists would be paralleled by a decrease in shots and scoring. And you can kind of consider those things a balancing act. So, what are the big potential difference points for LeBron going into this year versus last year? I think the best way to illustrate it is free throw percent and blocks. The blocks were up. Those probably don't stay. The free throw percent was back up where it used to be, all the way back in his Miami time. Remember, LeBron wasn't always a low to mid 60s foul shooter. He was in the 70s for a long stretch of his career, and it seemed like, well, I don't know, did he work out some sort of deal with his mechanics? Was it between the ears? Either way, This was a guy hitting 3-3-pointers a game while shooting over 50% from the field, while shooting 76%, almost at the free throw line. If that stuff holds, even if the blocks come down, even if the points come down and the assists come up, you're still talking about LeBron James as a first round per game guy. In fact, throughout his entire career, anytime his free throw percent has been in the mid 70s, he's been a first rounder on a per game basis. The stuff that knocked him out was all at the foul line. All of it. That's what it all rolled down to. So LeBron, as you're making your call on him, you're grading this out on, will he hit 72% or higher of his free throws? You can go through the years. He was number 16 back in 1920. He was hitting 69% of his free throws. You go through the whole darn thing. That's the way it's been for LeBron all the way from start to finish. The previous year, he hit 66% from the foul line. He was number 24. Go back another year. That was his final season in Cleveland. He hit 73% at the foul line. He was number 6. This we know about LeBron. Everything is tied to his free throw stroke. And I am one to generally believe the last thing I saw is the thing that likely happens again, more so than some sort of large-scale change. So, long discussion as we close out the window and bring myself back into view here. Long discussion, keeping it shorter. LeBron James is a steal this year. This will probably be the first time I have him on my fantasy teams in half a decade because he's now showing that the free throw stroke is improving. If the Lakers do swing a trade, I think that helps him because a lot of it's going to be motivation. If they're playing terribly, he's not going to want to go as hard. He'll take longer times off if he's hurt because then he'll be conserving himself. I expect the Lakers will make a deal at some point this year. I expect LeBron keeps his free throw stroke up. I expect him playing more games because they'll keep his minutes lower, because he'll be in a better position where he doesn't have to carry the whole team himself. First rounder per game, maybe misses a few more games than league average, keeps him near the end of the first round by totals. LeBron James, a steal. Weirdly, I know. Haven't said that in a long time here on the Sports Ethos YouTube show. So there you go. LeBron James, a steal in our first ever edition of Fantasy Bust or Steal. We went steal on a polarizing figure. I'm Dan Besbris. Please do like and subscribe to the YouTube page. Follow me on Twitter. We do a lot of work over there. We'll talk to you on the next edition of this particular show. So long, everybody.